Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to the Cyclist Tactics. We're on episode number 3. For those who have been following me on the channel for a long time, you already know that I love a good challenge. And, well, for some reason, we've accepted a harder challenge than what we already had. Now, we had really good results in our first race, and we had our first 2 races out of the way, but the save was unrecoverable. I don't know if that's because of a new update or why that might be. So we start anew, and we start with a harder challenge, and I've stepped it up on another level. We were already playing on hard difficulty, but now we're taking high expectations because, well, we found some success that first time around. So I figured, why not try again and try for even more? So now we're going hard difficulty and with the high expectations. So now we need 150 points plus over the season to have a successful season, which should raise our funding going forward. Then added to that challenge, instead of having 4 riders, we have 5, and the 5 riders that we have are overall at a slightly different pay scale, and so we're not actually able to fill out the races in the way that I'd quite like to, as our balance, as you can see up in the top right corner, is 35. So we're barely making the mark that we need to make. And you can see some blank spots on the calendar where I have fitness peaks that are scheduled and then no races. Those were spots that were filled, but I had to subtract those to make sure that we still keep a positive balance, which I think there's a way to get over your budget, but I don't want to get into the ramifications of that in our first season. I would like to maintain that positive balance. So that being said, we have 2 or 3 racers in every event this season. We have 3 blank spots on the calendar, so we'll have 6 races in which to get those 150 plus points. It's not going to be easy. Now, in terms of difficulty, though, we have 2 races, our final 2 races, that are the 2-star events, so a little bit higher competition level. That's going to be tough. We need to get our points somewhere in the first 4 events. First event probably won't be an easy place to do it because it's time trial. It's really hard to grab the points there, but Tyler Campbell, a +1 on the flat roller. Iker Ortega is like what we had last time around with a climber, but he's also good in the downhill and technical. Of course, my character is the same setup as what we had, and then we have 2 novices, but both with high potential of an 11 for one of them, potential of 9 for the other. So we'll look forward to seeing how those guys develop. They are long-term development projects for this team, and I think that's going to make things a lot easier going forward on what could be for those guys, and we'll see how well we can develop them in the long term. And that's what I love to go for in this type of game, is I like to take a young undeveloped rider and see if we can develop them long term. So excited for the prospect of those 3 in particular with my character, and to see what we can get out of those guys. Let's go ahead and get into the first race. Alright, we only have 2 racers here for this one, so it's gonna be interesting. Our one guy who's good on the flat, trying to preview ahead. We have one little downhill section. You definitely want to hit that section. You want to be here by our second turn. And it looks like if we go 1 space ahead, we can get there quite quickly. So it's quite evident that you kind of want to hit these 2 gaps starting out. And those who are really pushing through here are going to hurt themselves on their next turn. And then from there, I think you can go flat out to the finish. Like, some of the riders were certainly capable of getting that little bit further along and benefited from it, so the conservative approach did not work on this occasion. Time trials are still a little tricky for me. I'm still trying to read how to do those. It seems like conserving energy does not necessarily pan out for those, and you want to go almost flat out on a time trial, at least on the shorter ones. From the get-go, you get as far as you can absolutely get, and unless there's a massive difference between, like, say, a downhill and then into an immediate sharp uphill, there's no reason to conserve necessarily. Not a great result on that opening race. No points earned, so we're already down to 3 opportunities to pick up some points as we get 17th and 22nd overall on that one. Love the birthday cake and how that represents the age of a rider. Neat icon choice for that. But anyway, of our choices, I think there's really only 2 that stand out for me. You either have a climber, because they have obvious benefits, and then a sprinter, because there's obvious benefits there as well. Though, a classics rider with some all around and actually cheaper than the others might not be a bad choice. Great energy, though they are capped out at level 5 and they're not going to get any better, and they're 34 years of age. So this part looks nice, this part looks absolutely awful. So looking at our choices, I think we have either a sprinter or a climber to go with from the scouting here, and that doesn't necessarily mean we'll take either of these guys. In this case, I'm going to go with the younger with better potential. And as it is my preferred discipline, our first choice of scouting is going to be to look for a mountain rider from the mountainous region, and we'll see what we can get out of that. And so our second race on this new calendar sees us in a short prologue followed by 3 sprints, and it looks like you're looking at 2 turns at best. Now the difference between here and here is quite significant, and so we're obviously going to push for the max that we can get, but still set ourselves up for something on our next turn. So you can see almost all the field ends up right here, neck and neck. Times are going to be really close. And from there, it's a push onto the finish. Now, do you want to conserve time for some, or do you want to go for the stage win with others? That's a big, big question. And obviously, we're not using much in terms of stamina. We should have full recovery as it's just a prologue, but it's the attack points that could be impacted by going more than what is necessary to get to the finish. But as it's just sprints, I don't think our energy is going to matter quite as much. So we're going to go ahead and be bold, see what happens, and go from there. Heading into stage 2, you can see our disadvantage compared to the rest of the riders in the field, but not in a terrible place. We did okay. I just hope we didn't hurt ourselves too much by continuing to push. 11th, 13th, 19th. Stage number 2, it's super short, and I'm looking at an opportunity here. This current break, I think, has a real shot with such a short stage, and getting into that downhill sector already, and you can see just how short it is, so you're going to bypass it. This group's going to entirely miss that downhill sector and go straight into the flat, which means this gap is probably going to open, is what I predict. So I'm going to go ahead and put at least one rider into the attack. And depending on how the others react, I'm going to try to put them up there as well, because I really think this has a shot at working, especially with the kind of numbers involved. In fact, look, we're down to just 2 riders down here, so this has become the peloton going forward. And there you go, 9 riders left behind, and we've got all 3 of ours into a shrunken peloton of just 17. Reminder, we are looking at 3 sprint stages ahead of us. Slipstream. Ooh, hello, Slipstream. Okay. You see that chase group is falling apart at the seams. We've already done a lot to get there. It's going to hurt us in stages to follow, but this is about experience, and we'll see what we can do on this first stage. Having potentially all 3 of these guys in the top 10 following this stage, potentially. I mean, we're looking at 17 riders, and certainly moving up the order with quite a few riders behind dropping further and further back. It would be lovely to see us move into the top 10 and pick up some points. Short stage like this, I can definitely see the need to kind of just go flat out. Stay in contention. All 17 have opted to do the same. We're already coming up on the finish. Look how close we are. Oh, we're not quite gonna get there, which means we're gonna have one more turn to push for the finish line. So despite our push at the end, there's just some riders that are that much stronger and ended up ahead of us, even though we went max effort throughout. Not sure quite how we got pushed back on that one, but it has improved our position to 11th, 12th, and 16th now. Overall, still just that 20, 22, 27 seconds down. Certainly not a bad result. In terms of the actual stage, where we were, it has... that's not right. We were not last place. I saw plenty of riders behind us. That's... Stage 3, a little bit longer. We're going to push into the main group, as this just seems to be a high tempo, quick race. We have some guys with a bit of stamina, though they're not great on the flat, so it's hard to get much of a result. But it's not too hard to keep going. Oh, this is a big move to get past the one and only hill of the day. For those who can, this is really going to separate them from the rest of the chase. Majority get there, but definitely not all. I'm afraid if I make this move, the whole peloton's gonna follow me, but I'm gonna try to get off the front just before the end of this stage with one of my riders. We'll see if everybody follows. So far, they haven't, and it looks like I can follow with Tyler Campbell fairly easily, so we're definitely gonna take that. Pavlov as well. So I got my whole group pushing up a little bit further, but let's see if it's suddenly everybody is here. No, we've split the peloton. We have split the peloton in half, and somehow 5 riders got even further up the road. Even though we went max effort there, they somehow went that much further. Some sort of advantage that they had that we didn't have. You can see the front 5 have pushed even further on, and we're going to have to go max effort yet again here to try to keep things moving along and stay in some sort of strong position. And it looks like Campbell can go even further. Let's go ahead and take that position, and Pavlov can actually follow. So the field splits up even further. Huge gaps in the peloton. We're off the front, but we're not at the front. Our lack of sprint, our lack of flat rating really impacting us on this one. It's a little frustrating that we haven't been able to do more, but this result has pushed us into the top 10. We got 2 guys into the top 10 already. That's a good start. That's a good start. Christopher Ward also in touching distance, not too far off, but Campbell and Pavlov up there is certainly a good thing. 2 riders starting to get away from the rest of the bunch, but everybody else is in striking distance. We could still potentially move up a little bit further heading into this final stage. Now, for the first time, we see a couple riders split off here. It would be really nice if they were top 10 riders, but I highly doubt that. Of course, you suspect it's zeros. It's the riders that have already lost time previously, struggling at the back. But we're halfway through this final stage. We're going really quick with it just being sprints and having had a little bit of experience. But I'm definitely learning from this one, at least with the type of energy that our riders have, even though they don't necessarily have quality. Max effort keeping up is very, very important. They're not quick enough to pull away from riders, but they're quick enough, or at least they have enough energy to keep up and stay in the slipstream. So 2 riders have gone clear up the road, and it's already the leader, plus 1 other, so we're not in a terrible place to be following back here a little further. One more rider off the front, unfortunately. I think it's time for us to start making a move, as we certainly have some energy to spare here on this final stage. We'll get as far up the road as we can. As it's the final stage, we use max sprint, get all that we can out of our riders. Those top 2 rode away from us. That was difficult, but in terms of the overall, we'll see where we wound up. Did we gain any ground? No, we stay 8th and 9th overall, and then we did gain 1 position back here to 12th. It still doesn't get us into the top 10, though. Top 10 is where you get the points. So we pick up 32 points overall. Not the greatest result, but considering the strength of our team, 2 best riders are climbers, and there was no climbs involved. This group, a level 3 and a couple level 1s, are sprinters. For them to even get into the top 10 at all, we'll take that down as a bit of an achievement. So not a bad result, all things considered. I did have a strange one in stage number 2, where it looked like we had finished in a pretty decent place. Like, we weren't in a bad place overall. We were very much in the upper middle of the pack, but it showed that we had finished in last and that everybody was on the same time. So I don't know if that was just a bug showing in the results, or if I missed something there, or if our results held true, because I mean, here we are in 8th and 9th, so I don't feel like we lost a huge chunk of time. Of course, Saladinov was just way too fast compared to everybody else, much higher level rider. And he was a bit of an untouchable, but compared to everybody else, we weren't in a bad place. Well, anyway, that's going to go ahead and do it for this episode. We've already recovered the ground that we had lost in the first one, but we haven't recovered the points yet. We still have some work to do for the season, and of course, we increased the amount of work that it was going to take to cover off the points for the season. So we'll see if we've made a mistake, or if we can replicate what we did the first time around. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.